watching East Midlands today here on the BBC. And next, a military battalion that has taken hundreds of East Midlands soldiers to the front line is being disbanded next week. The Mercian Regiment's 2nd Battalion saw some of the British Army's fiercest fighting in Afghanistan. Over the years, well, we've followed its young recruits from their homes in Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire to the heat of battle. Our social affairs correspondent Jeremy Ball is at the Regimental Museum tonight. Good evening to you, Jeremy.
Yes, good evening. I'm starting with a bit of a fascinating trip here actually through Nottingham's military history. You can see how local forces have been amalgamated and disbanded several times over the last 300 years, almost 300 years now, but they've always kept that local connection right through to the formation of the Mercian Regiment here, when troops recruited from Nottinghamshire and from Derbyshire were recruited into the 2nd Battalion. Well, now that era is coming to an end too, so we've been taking a look back through the archives. A modern frontline fighting force with proud roots in Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire, in the towns and cities where so many of these young soldiers were recruited. The 2nd Battalion was formed from the historic Worcestershire and Sherwood Foresters regiments. 15 years on, it's being disbanded as the Mercian Regiment slimmed down.
Get on there! Get this change done now, let's go!
But the 2nd Battalion's bravery and sacrifices won't be forgotten. Some of these men training for their 2nd deployment to Helmand Province were battle-hardened teenagers.
Assalamu alaikum.
By summer 2009, 2 Mercians' mission was training new local recruits from the Afghan National Army, patrolling into enemy territory together, flushing out the Taliban.
To the building on the canal, for the black door!
Bullets and bombs were a daily threat as the 2nd Battalion faced some of the British Army's toughest fighting since World War II. But some of their comrades never came home, remembered here at Derby Cathedral. Kieran Hill was laid to rest near his home at Clifton in Nottingham. Kieran was killed by an improvised explosive device. But others owe their lives to the courage of friends. Kyle Smith from Arnold was awarded the Conspicuous Gallantry Cross. Kyle dragged 2 of his injured comrades to safety through heavy gunfire. It wasn't long before they were training to go back to Helmand Province, to a war that's defined the 2nd Battalion's history. This final Afghanistan deployment took them to the country's capital, Kabul, advising and supporting a government that collapsed so suddenly last summer.
We're going to hard target out of the camp.
The soldiers from 2 Mercian are now being redeployed across 8 other British Army battalions, many moving to a new, smaller Mercian regiment, as the British Army faces fresh challenges on the borders of its own continent. Well, I'm joined now by Kiernan Walker, who runs some of the tours here at Nottingham Castle. Thanks for joining us, Kiernan. The 2nd Battalion's always had local connections with Nottingham, hasn't it? So how significant do you think this amalgamation is?
Well, given the fact that the 2nd Battalion has always had its forebears, the Worcestershire Sherwood Foresters, they've always had that direct line through their sort of heritage and lineage. And now that they're merging with 1 Mercian, sort of muddies the waters slightly.
Yeah, and it's going to cover a much bigger area, isn't it? They won't recruit locally in the same way. And soldiers do feel very strongly about that. Why is there such a strong link to Nottingham, do you think?
Well, I think it's mostly just it's like I said, it's a heritage and a family connections thing. You know, people have their relations, their ancestors who served as part of the Sherwood Foresters and the other regiments as well.
Some of your ancestors served, didn't they?
Yeah, my great-grandfather served in the First World War at the tail end and into the 20s with the Sherwood Foresters.
Very briefly, I know this is one of your favourite artefacts. Tell us about this.
So this is the Robin Hood Rifles case. This is all about the Robin Hood Rifles, who were a volunteer militia. These were ordinary people of Nottingham who formed their own militia here at the castle in 1859.
Fascinating stuff. Kiernan Walker, thanks so much for joining us today. Worth saying that 2 Mercian have already had a private ceremony to lower their flag and furl up their colours, so that's already happened. They get formally disbanded next Thursday.
Oh, OK, Jeremy, thank you very much for that.